Hey, welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today I am talking to Galen Hair. Galen is the founder and partner at Insurance Claim HQ, one of the country's largest property casualty law firms, representing policyholders against their insurance company. His experience and relentlessness have allowed him to help more than 1,200 families get back into their homes after hurricanes and other disasters. Galen is also focused on educating the industry and helping businesses grow through mentorship and organizing the Level Up Claims Summit annually. Additionally, Galen has also launched the Level Up Claims podcast, and he is on a mission to change the insurance industry to make them pay out claims fairly, without delay, denial, and underpayment. Galen, it's good to have you on, man.
It's awesome to talk to you again, Raul. Good to hear from you and good to get a chance to meet again.
This is exciting. One of the things that I love around business, and we can maybe talk about the philosophy of business in the digital space, we all feel like we're isolated. Yeah, we yearn for community and we create the community, we join community, et cetera, et cetera. But in the business that you're in, the business of restoring and helping communities get back to normal, it's like a central theme around what you do. And what I found is that you've fostered community, you help community, but also you use and add to community through marketing, through events, through support. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your philosophy around the business that you're actually in and how you're emphasizing community in that?
Yeah, so we're in the first party world, meaning essentially I'm helping people that have businesses or homes after a disaster. Those disasters are not always localized, right? You could have a fire in one city and another fire all the way across the country, but often those disasters are localized. Like a hurricane hits a specific area, a tornado even might get as close as hitting a specific neighborhood, right? So community has always kind of been part of both the benefit and the challenge to just even making our business run. There might be a disaster in a community with which we have no connection. So we have to figure out, how do we penetrate that community? How do we develop a trusting relationship with the members of that community? So ideally, we can become part of that community, right? That in and of itself is a whole animal that I think my team is still working on, but we've made so much progress over the last few years in terms of the way we do that. But then I think where it gets really challenging is like also making sure you foster that same community environment within your own firm, whether you're or your own
Hmm.
business, whether you're in the same place physically or different places. And we all kind of, I learned that at least during COVID. I was very surprised at how unfulfilled I was professionally and personally when I lived in New Orleans and we were just locked down for a long time. There were restrictions. People were not going to the office. It was at least a couple of months, maybe a little bit more. And I was just shocked at how unfulfilling like living that life was. That kind of taught me that community was also a missing part of the firm itself.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, the quote is that no man or no human, no person is an island. Like we foster community. It's ingrained in our DNA. But I think it's interesting. So just to break down what you mentioned, it's obviously you support localized or specific event communities through the work that you do. You're also fostering that within your team, but then also it's how do you build and harness community? And I think that's the one key thing that we always forget. Right? Everyone's on social, everyone's on online marketing, the ads, whatever. But what about actually building trust-based relationships in person, grassroots community, and being that go-to person? I think maybe leaning into the marketing side of that. How are you what are some of the things that your team's exploring or things that you learned or big aha moments that you would say someone else doing this? Here's some things to watch out for.
Yeah, so on the marketing side specifically, I think there's a few things. First of all, it's finding a message that actually resonates with that community, that is not a hire me, I'm great, but more here is what you need, even if we're not really pushing. Case in point, we hired a new trainer. She and I had lunch today. I try to grab lunch with the new employees whenever I can
Mhm.
because I want to get to know them and I want to hear about them. And the first thing out of her mouth when she sits down is, I was teaching at this school on this year. And I don't know if you remember this, but two kids in our school had a fire and you guys donated money for them to get all new school clothes and
Oh,
school
wow.
supplies and everything. And I was like, no, I honestly don't remember that because we do it a lot. But she's like, so when I saw you guys were hiring and I was looking to make a change, I just thought that was perfect. It was a perfect fit. You
Mm-hmm.
guys had our values. And I think that's the first step, is like showing a community that your company, that's not necessarily giving money to something. It can be anything. You have to show, on the marketing side, you have to show a community that you have the same values that they have. You and I had spoken before, and we talked about the importance of kind of communicating to your team your goals, your vision, et cetera. You also have to
Mm-hmm.
communicate your values. Who you are as a person is not necessarily who your company is as an entity,
Yeah.
unless you put in that work to create those. And I think that was the first step. Like Bobby's our marketing director, have realized, is you really have to show a community that you are the type of people that they want in their community. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
do that through messaging. You have to do that through actions, because messaging is just words.
Yep.
And so then you have to show, if we say we're good people, then we need to actually go be good people, right? We can't just
Yeah.
say we're
Practice.
nice. We spend, after a hurricane, we're not out there knocking on doors. We're not even ethically allowed to, and we're not out there running TV, radio, billboard, right? We are out there feeding people. Why? Because it's something to do. B, because it's meaningful, because people need it.
Mm-hmm.
And C, because it allows us to meaningfully engage. We start to meet people, we start to make friends in the community. And that is helpful for us, because later, if that's going to be an area we're going to market, we want to have had those interactions. So we will
Mm-hmm.
go volunteer with a church, even another company that's just set up. We actually noticed this really slightly unnerving trend in the last hurricane, where the children are really emotionally distraught. And one of the things they're distraught about is food. Food is so interesting how it affects people.
Mm-hmm.
And kids cannot get the types of foods that kids normally eat after a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, the army's like giving away MREs, and all
Yeah.
the contractors and stuff are making pulled pork and brisket, right? So there's like no pizza, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we like went and bought a pizza oven on a trailer. That way we can go make pizza and make sure the kids have pizza, right? But that's like, just you don't have to do something like that, but in your marketing, you have to show the community that you are the type of person that they want to associate with.
And I think the key thing is too is that you're living the values out not for the sake of just growth for its own sake, but it's because it's the right thing to do. I mean, it's not like, oh, we're going to plaster these values on the wall. We're actually going to live them out, but there's a difference to that. And I think it's important to kind of highlight that or read for our listeners, like whatever values say that you follow, like, is that a standard that you're holding yourself and your team to? Like one of my masterminds, we just got off a call, and some people on that in our group, what they do every staff meeting, they just list out their values. And then when someone forgets to do it, the team members are like, hey, you need to reread it, because if not, it feels empty, like just the work that we're doing. And that can be a simple thing like that, to the point where now you're doing the specific actions that deliver real benefit and real value to the communities. And then in the future, building that relationship, because everyone's in the business of human to human. It doesn't matter if you're B2C, B2B, it's just human to human. That's one of the key things that, as technology advances, no one's going to change a key relationship with another person in another entity that aligns. I think it's
Mm.
interesting too that you attract a certain type of team member because of the activities that you focus on and you're living out your actual values. How has that, I mean, we can dive any which way you want here. You've grown substantially in the last year or so, right? How has that translated into tangible, real growth for you and your team?
Yeah, so it's such an interesting question, right? Because what is the ROI on sending 4 people to a hurricane and distributing hundreds of pizzas? Probably zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't care how many softwares you have, how many data points you have, you're not likely going to be able to mathematically or economically justify that decision if what you're staring at is ROI. But what you can do is hire based on values, act based on values, and then compare those data points in terms of your growth, right? So I think anyone that owns a business knows that the better your team is, the better your business performs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of a business where it actually behooves them to have team members that are not engaged and are not performing. Maybe it exists, but it's definitely not in my world.
Yeah.
So what we're really trying to get is the best team members ever. We're in the business of providing positive results. So
Mm-hmm.
our theory is, and it's like a flywheel concept, right? It's like a better team creates better results for clients,
Mm-hmm.
which then gets us even better team members because they want to come join a winning team, which then gets us even better results for clients, and around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So keeping the values is like a core part of that. I mean, we've seen exponential growth. We started in August of 2020 with 7 people. And I think bona fide people on payroll were around 130, 140
Mhm.
with multiple offices. I don't know what that rate is, but
Wow.
it's been 2.5 years and it's substantial.
Yeah, that's insane. And I think going back to your point of the team, I mean, that's the easiest flywheel I've ever seen. Sometimes flywheels have like 3 or 5 moving parts, like good team, good results. People want to join a winning team. And that's so true. I think it's also maturity level too. Like I've seen it with some clients that I've had or teams that have helped that they, there is a certain aha moment they have to get to say, wow, my team equals my product or my team equals the results that we can get. And then focuses all energy to improving team and to improving team performance. And I think that's a maturity level that we all have to take in our experience, but just skip the gap and focus on the team is what I'm trying to say here. You mentioned around, again, you're not sending the pizzas out because you want to deliver an ROI, you're doing it because it's the right thing. When you're looking at deciding and your decision making frameworks, do you have like your own internal team frameworks, personal frameworks, like a priority of not just the values, but a priority of this is what we're going to do because it aligns now with a bigger staff, aligns with all of our central beliefs. How do you manage that? How do you coordinate that now that you're substantially bigger?
Yeah, so I have a little decision making tool that I use. It is just a piece of paper, but I've copied it like a million times and saved it as a template. And I kind of rate things that we're considering, right?
Hmm.
And one of the scores is time commitment of me or other key people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's going to take away from something else that's important, we need to factor that in. Another is obviously cost. We have to think about that. But the third thing is, does this further our goals or our mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each different score gets 1 through 5. I don't have a hard cutoff, like, not like, oh, if it scores 10 or above, we'll do it. Like, I don't have that because I don't think these answers can be purely solved with math, but it has to be a combination of time, cost, and purpose, right? And if it's not either consistent with your values or furthering your mission, which it should be both, but sometimes it's not. There may be times where there's something's consistent with your values and you may do it anyway because you think it's going to help your team and be better, but it
Mm-hmm.
isn't actually moving the dial towards your mission. I think those should be rare, but
Mm-hmm.
they do exist and you might do them. Like, how in the world could I justify after a hurricane, in terms of furthering our mission, renting out an apartment complex and putting all my employees in it when a hurricane hit our main office, right? I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't move our mission, but it definitely was consistent with our values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like an example. So I kind of use that tool. It's not fancy, it's simple. I know you've used similar things. And but for me, I weigh those three things, but I materially weigh them. I give them numbers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in my head, I need to do that. And I think if you're just sitting there thinking through like a decision, do I want to do this? You sometimes miss the boat on the three things you need to consider. So for me, those are the three factors.
The three guiding principles, that makes a lot of sense. I had another buddy mention that was for him, it was like a family, team or profit, team, and then clients. But I think here the key core component's also mission. And I kind of want to dive into your mission because it is different. It is, I kind of want to see what you're painting for the future. So, I mean, the current situation is where the insurance industry is. And what is that future vision or mission that you want to create it into? Like, what does that look like? What does that world feel like? And why is it worth fighting for?
Well, it's an interesting dichotomy because there's a lot going on around the country legislatively.
Mm-hmm.
So it couldn't be a more interesting time for you to ask that question for the next probably year and a half. So I always say, and I mean, that our mission is that we create a culture of accountability with insurance claims such that we are no longer essential. That's my dream job, right? I will go work at McDonald's if insurance companies will just start paying everyone. It does not matter to me. I'm not worried about the money. If insurance companies will just pay everyone right the first time, I will be the happiest bartender in the world. It does not matter. But obviously that's an unachievable mission. That's got some advantages to have an unachievable mission because everyone keeps striving, but it really is what we want and it's what we all believe. We believe that's the way the world should look. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of achievable missions, our goal obviously, and we set goals of how many people we want to help, how many communities we want to help every year, but our
Mm-hmm.
goal is to help as many people as possible within certain confines of what makes sense for us, what relationships are good.
Mm-hmm.
However, we're in a world right now where insurance companies are starting to pass new legislation to kind of remove some of that accountability.
Hmm.
So, for instance, in Florida, they've done it, right? Right after Hurricane Ian, in Florida, they revoked various consumer protection provisions that protected consumers from insurance companies misbehaving. They're about to pass yet an even worse package in the state of Florida. That's
Hmm.
not my home state, so I'm just kind of watching. I offered help wherever I could. We know that that's coming to Louisiana this year. We know that's coming to Texas soon. We know that's going to start working its way around the country. So we're in an interesting world right now where our job, our role will always exist, but a lot of the protections in place for our clients are starting to get eroded. So we're kind of trying to configure our mission to take into account the very harsh reality that we have to get involved at a legislative level, even though that's never been our area.
Interesting. I want to dive into why set an unachievable mission, but now it's changing or it's evolving to something bigger, like a David versus Goliath piece here. Well, I want to lean into the changes that are happening and how you're adjusting for that. Is this more of creating new offerings and services, or is this a new arm that you're going to be diving into? Is it a new category that you're going to be jumping into? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, so for us, it's not a new set of well, it kind of is a new set of services, but no one's going to hire us for it. We're
Hmm.
doing it out of necessity to protect our existing past and future clients, right?
Wow.
It's important, and as well as protect us. But more importantly, it protects the community at large. We're not the only ones, by the way, altering that business model. I have several quote unquote competitors because we always joke about that term since most of us in this industry are very friendly. We get along, we share tips, but I have several competitors and they're all doing the same thing. We just believe that we're in a position where kind of our morals and our ethics require us to get more involved instead of sit back and watch these things happen. Because you can't say on one hand, oh, I really care about a community and I'm here to do good, and then on the other hand sit back and watch like mass injustice occur and just figure, okay, I'll slightly modify my business model to stay profitable. It's not consistent with those values you espouse, and at some point you have to look yourself in the mirror. So you use the word evolution, right? And that's great because without people getting too political or religious, the concept of evolution is that things change because they must for survival, right? You look at,
Stressors to produce a change. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's it. So in our mind, this is a change we have to make for our clients and our survival.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's like a call to arms too. Like you could just sit back and relax, but it's more like it's pulling you. It's really aligning to what are you called to? What are you actually answering to? And it's a pretty big monster to tackle. Do you ever see like not partnering, but like aligning or joining forces with quote unquote competitors to try to do it together versus separating your own silos?
Yeah, we have a lot of cross collaboration already. I'm very fortunate to work in an industry where we can compete directly for the same clients or the same jobs. And then we can go out to dinner and talk about the greater good and what we want to see in the world and share resources, share money, share people. I mean, I've sent people to competitors to help out when they had a problem, right?
Hmm.
And they've done the same for me. So I'm in this really great industry. It also helps us weed out the bad guys really quick. So if there's a competitor that does not share those kind of values, does not share that general approach to life, they don't tend to survive in our industry for very long because no one will cooperate or work with them. I mean, we just had a law firm disintegrate in front of the entire country, and it was big news in Louisiana, but decent national news. And one of the reasons they disintegrated is because they will not play nicely with others.
That's incredible, right? Like the key premise of business is to help another human out. It's one of the things that I've been thinking about. It's every service that we provide, it's either helping someone's psychological issue, a physical issue, or like a tangible emotional issue, but it's still helping other humans out. Even if it's a vet taking care of their dog or taking care of their house, like it's always helping another person out. So that's pretty fascinating. With all the heaviness of the weight that I'm pretty sure you carry that every single day, it's like you're going out to battle. What do you do for fun? What do you do like to have the team enjoy, play, have fun, and build that culture?
So our main office is in New Orleans, and that does give us a lot of flexibility in terms of having fun. Obviously, we have Mardi Gras. Like one year, for instance, we got a Mardi Gras float for everyone, and everyone got to ride. It's not what you're thinking
Nice.
if you've never been. There are festivals, crawfish boils. We have all these opportunities. We did a concert series last year, so we try to get the team as they get bigger and bigger. It does get harder, and it takes a lot more intention. Like for instance, right now we do not have a space that is large enough for us to put every single person into a room.
Mm.
We'll fix that, right? But like the next event is going to be outdoors, which means we have very little time to do that in a southern climate because in about 2 months that's going to be off the table. So we try to keep people interacting. We try to keep people living those core values out. We also, of course, incentivize following the core values at work. We expect everyone to do it, but when you notice someone else doing it, you actually have the ability to bonus other employees by acknowledging those core values. So we kind of create that. But then outside of work, we also try to do that by creating a community and allowing those people to and encouraging them to have a community that includes their coworkers.
That's key. And that's fascinating to have to solve the problem of we're too big for a space, but then also the weather permitting, we got to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
That's exciting. For our listeners out there, Galen, where's the best place for people to, one, thank you for being on, and two, learn more about you and what you're up to?
Social media is probably easiest. Our firm is called Insurance Claim HQ. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and then you can also under my own name. I'm on both of those as well. And finally, I guess we have a website, insuranceclaimhq.com.
So we will put those links in the show notes. Galen, thanks again, man.
Thank you.
If you found value in today's podcast, please consider sharing this with someone that you believe could also benefit from this episode. You never know, you may be the catalyst that opens them up to a new way of operating their business and experiencing life. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.